Hello, my name is Anna Saucier, and I am a Creighton Model Fertility Care Practitioner. This is a presentation called Why NFP. This is particularly from a Catholic perspective. First, a brief introduction of myself. My Catholic faith journey really began at the Franciscan University of Steubenville in college, where I earned a dual degree in philosophy and theology. Noble, but made me basically unemployable following college. So I dabbled in a few different things. I did some IT consulting, and then some commercial real estate finance, and then some web design all over the following 10 years. During that time, I had met and married my husband, and we learned the symptothermal method of NFP with the intention to avoid pregnancy for a couple of years. And then we began trying to get pregnant. After 3 years of nothing and really not much help in mainstream medicine, we came across the Creighton model and NAPRA technology, which I will explain what that is later in the presentation. My reproductive issues proved to be numerous and complex, but our NAPRA technology doctor did not give up on us for 4 years. Late in 2014, we conceived our NAPRO miracle baby, and he is happy, healthy, and truly a fulfillment of God's promises. Through that journey of infertility, which anyone who has gone through it can attest to, can be truly agonizing, and is really a heavy suffering to carry. But I did feel a strong call to help others through that journey by sharing this incredible information that I had gleaned, really true help for those suffering from infertility and other reproductive issues, and also for using natural family planning to responsibly plan families. My calling was a total God thing in itself. I was sitting in adoration one day, and the thought just came to me, I could be a practitioner. So the next day I emailed someone who I knew was a practitioner, and less than 30 days later found myself sitting in a room in Dallas, Texas, in a 6-day immersion training. So when God works, He can work quickly sometimes. So why NFP? We're going to look at two sides here, both a historical social context and a philosophical theological context. And I'm going to try and do so in about 30 minutes. So let's get started. We're going to start with some history. So contraception is nothing new. There have been various methods of contraception around for over 4,000 years, and that's only where we have information. However, really only in the last century have different religions embraced contraception as an option. Beginning with the Anglicans in the 1930s, and nearly every Protestant group followed suit in the coming decades. We have to understand that this was not an easy thing to face. We can sit here judging those people making those choices in those times, but families in those eras were facing more financial pressures, new financial pressures that they'd never experienced before. And women were coming into the workplace, so they were no longer at home. How were they going to handle just having all these children freely? So when the birth control pill was approved by the FDA in 1960, it seemed to be a widely accepted social answer. It could take the pressure off of families and couples, and finally, all right, we have a suitable modern medicine solution. So then the big question became, what is the Catholic Church going to do? They were the only holdouts on contraception, but how could they deny their good people this miraculous wonder pill? Everyone, Catholics and non-Catholics alike, including some and actually many bishops and cardinals within the church, expected the church to follow suit and allow contraception. So when Pope Paul VI published his groundbreaking encyclical, Humanae Vitae, it was not well received. And guys, if you can get your hands on a copy of Humanae Vitae, actually this is very easy, just do a Google search for it, you'll find it, you can download a PDF, read it. It's fairly easy to read, and it's very, very rich in an understanding of the church's position on human life. So Humanae Vitae reiterated, this is not a new teaching, this is what Catholic teaching was since its beginning. The church was reiterating that it would not approve or condone the use of the birth control pill or any other contraceptive practices. So this was very, very difficult to swallow, because at the time there were really not any good alternatives. There was basically the rhythm method. And you guys probably know the jokes. What do you call a couple who practices NFP? Parents. And there are many more. So, but Pope Paul VI reiterated in Humanae Vitae that the church calls married couples to what he refers to as responsible parenthood, reinforcing that the church does not want us all to reproduce like rabbits, to quote a recent controversial statement by our beloved Pope Francis, or to be like the Duggars and simply and just have copious amounts of children. But she, the church, wants parents to prayerfully consider the size and growth of their families according to their means, their abilities, their community, and their own place in life. So he in the church is calling us to responsible parenthood, but how are we going to do that? We'll cover that in a second. Pope Paul VI even warned against what using this particular means, contraception, would affect if used toward the good end of responsible parenthood. So he's got warnings in Humanae Vitae. Guys, this is what's going to happen, he says, if we take and use contraception toward the end of responsible parenthood. I'm going to pop over to the actual document here where I've highlighted some passages. To quote, "Let them first consider how easily this course of action could open wide the way for marital infidelity and a general lowering of moral standards." Think about this. This was written in 1960, okay, beginning of the sexual revolution. Not much experience is needed to be fully aware of human weakness and to understand that human beings, especially the young, who are so exposed to temptation, need incentives to keep the moral law. And it is an evil thing to make it easy for them to break that law. Another effect that gives cause for alarm is that a man who grows accustomed to the use of contraceptive methods may forget the reverence due to a woman, and, disregarding her physical and emotional equilibrium, reduce her to being a mere instrument for the satisfaction of his own desires. Finally, careful consideration should be given to the danger of this power passing into the hands of those public authorities who care little for the precepts of the moral law. This is key. Who will blame a government which, in its attempt to resolve the problems affecting an entire country, resorts to the same measures as are regarded as lawful by married people in the solution of a particular family difficulty? Skip a sentence and he says, should they regard this as necessary, using contraceptive methods is what he means, they may even impose their use on everyone. So what he's saying is, what's going to stop the government in looking at contraception that is used by married couples Why don't we just take this and make it a necessity, make it something that's used widely in our society? This, of course, is happening in our modern times. So Pope Paul VI goes on to appeal to men of science, as he refers to them, to explain more thoroughly the various conditions favoring a proper regulation of births founded on the observance of natural rhythms. Because he says, a true contradiction cannot exist between the divine laws pertaining to the transmission of life and those pertaining to the fostering of authentic conjugal love. He's saying that God made this. God made sex. And there's got to be a way around this. There cannot be a contradiction between the intimacy of the marital act and the transmission of life, the reproductive part of the marital act. And, thanks be to God, scientists and doctors heeded this call in the coming decades. We'll see that in the modern means of natural family planning that we have available to us today. So that lays out our historical foundation. Let's jump over now to the philosophical theological foundation, and this is namely Saint Pope John Paul II's brilliance of the theology of the body. Now bear with me here, because the theology, this book called The Theology of the Body, which is a compilation of John Paul II's talks about theology of the body to various Wednesday audiences, is about 500 pages, and I'm going to try and give you a version of it in about 5 minutes, okay? So here we go. Firstly, a little anecdote. I was helping out with the confirmation classes where we were teaching theology of the body, and after class one night with the teens, one teen came up to me and said, "Imagine if everyone used NFP. What a difference it would make in the world." And I just sighed and thought, wow, she gets it. This is truth. Finally, Christopher West in the Beginner's Theology of the Body book says, sex is not just about sex. It's about so much more. Sex is about communicating with our bodies, the deepest love by which we were created. So let's back up for a second. The basis of this is to be like Christ is to love. We're called to be like Christ. And to be like Christ is to love. It's really that simple. John Paul II's basis of the theology of the body is that love is to make oneself a gift to another. To love is to be a gift to the other. And the deepest gift of self that we have here on earth is the unity of husband and wife in the marital act. This is an act which is meant to be made freely, totally, faithfully, and fruitfully with the other, to whom I have given myself in marriage, freely, totally, faithfully, and fruitfully. These are the questions asked by the celebrant just before the couple makes their marriage vows. Any of you who are married, you made these same vows. Listen to the questions. Have you come here freely and without reservation to give yourselves to each other in marriage, totally? Will you love and honor each other as husband and wife for the rest of your lives? That's faithfully. Will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and His church? That's fruitfully. And the marital act, sex, was created by God to be a repeated incarnation of those marriage promises. This is amazing. Every time you have sex in marriage, it's an act that is free, total, faithful, and fruitful. So every time we have marital intercourse, it is to be a fulfillment of those marriage vows. You're making those vows once again. Wow. This is theology of the body. This is great stuff. So when we contracept, however, we place something in the middle of that act. The marital act then becomes not total. It is no longer a total gift of self. And we are communicating that we don't want the fruitfulness part of the act either. To quote Brian Kissinger, who's a speaker for Life Team and the Steubenville conferences, he says, what this contraceptive marital act is saying is, I want this, but not everything that goes with it. He says, when a couple uses contraception, one person, or both, is choosing to hold something back from the other. It's as if they are saying, here is almost all of me, except for that part of me, my fertility, that allows us to become partners with God in creating new life. Even though both may seem to be aimed at the same goal of postponing pregnancy, NFP and contraception are vastly different. Here's what the body language of each is saying. Okay, listen to this. Contraception says, I want to be with you. I know that we are hoping to not get pregnant, but I really want you, and I'm willing to put barriers between us because I can't wait. NFP, on the other hand, says, I want to be with you, but because of our discernment and decisions together and prayerfully with God, it's not the right time to have a child. I am willing to sacrifice my desire and enjoy intimacy in other ways. That's how much I love and respect you and our marriage. Many have mistakenly believed that contraception would bring freedom into marriages by taking away the risk of children. Instead, what happens is both husband and wife experience what Kissinger calls less than love, when they give each other less than everything. The love between husband and wife was always meant to be an image of God's free, total, faithful, and fruitful love for us. Please know that it is not my goal here to condemn anyone. I know that there are people listening right now who are using contraceptives, and it's not an easy answer or easy choice to make in any of our lives today. I understand that. You don't need me to tell you that life is hard. My husband and I spent 7 years of our lives hoping and praying for the desires of our heart to have a child. That's 80-something months of hope followed by disappointment. And many of those months were also accompanied by pills, injections, sometimes 3 ultrasounds a month, just to try and urge my body to do what it was supposed to be doing naturally. Month after month of dreams, of waiting, praying, followed by disappointment, bitterness, anger, and sometimes depression and despair. So you might be thinking, what does your situation have to do with contraception? It's the total opposite problem, right? Yes, but really in our modern society, it's very, very much the same. You see, we're both dealing with the same world that encourages us to take the much easier way. I heard this in our own journey. Why do you put yourself through all this when you could just do IVF or IUI? Or here, my sister knows someone who will be a surrogate for you. And to those couples who are wanting to postpone another child, why don't you just take the pill, use condoms, or better yet, get an IUD or a Norplant device? Then you don't even have to think about it. This is hard. I know it's hard. But we have to fight the lies and try to listen to and follow the truth. We are better than these easy answers that our society is offering us. We are better and we deserve better. We deserve full, total, faithful, and fruitful. And we can. You can. There is something better. Is it easy? No. Is it possible? Definitely. Is it worth it? Absolutely. So let's talk about some of these options. These are really our modern methods of natural family planning that I'm going to go through very briefly. The symptothermal method is based on mainly on taking temperatures. Once a day, same time every day before you get up in the morning, you're taking temperatures, and it can show you shifts in the cycles. There are some other signs of fertility that are tracked in the symptothermal method. Symptothermal method is very common, widely taught within Catholic circles. It is generally quite inexpensive, but it is not a standardized method. So you have different couples volunteering to teach the method, and they may be teaching slightly differently amongst them. The Marquette method uses a fertility monitor device in order to observe for signs of ovulation, also not standardized. So different teachers may be teaching in slightly different ways. The Billings method was the first mucus-based method, observing for the changes in the mucus signs throughout the cycle. The Creighton model was the first standardized method, which was based out of the Billings method. So it is a standardized system of tracking various biological markers. And this is the one that I teach, and then I'm going to go over very briefly here with you. The Creighton model takes a very medical, biological approach to natural family planning. This is one of the things that I love most about it, is that it's not faith or religion based. I don't talk about God or faith while I'm teaching, so that it's just truth. It's just truth about our bodies, and therefore we can easily teach to individuals and couples from many, many different backgrounds. Really to anyone, because we believe that everyone has a right to the knowledge of their fertility. We teach responsible parenthood instruction, meaning achieving or avoiding timing conceptions, challenging couples to grow in all areas of relationship. We refer to the acronym SPICE, which means spiritual, physical, intellectual, communicative, and emotional. In all of these areas, couples can strengthen their relationship and be responsible parents. So this is a shared system learned and used by the couple together. It's one-on-one teaching. This approach is the key to the high levels of effectiveness that we have. It's also highly customizable, so we can use the system in regular or irregular cycles, during anovulation states, during breastfeeding, premenopause, really any reproductive category throughout a woman's life. We focus on very specific mucus observations, and there is a standard teaching schedule. There's an intro session to begin with, and then I would meet with a couple every 2 weeks for the first 4 sessions, and then they begin to spread out from there. A couple of effectiveness slides. So this shows the effectiveness of the Creighton model to avoid pregnancy for couples of normal fertility. This was a compilation of 5 different studies that were done with over 1,800 couples in over 17,000 months of couple use. The method effectiveness was shown to be 99.5%. Method effectiveness means perfect use. The general use effectiveness was found to be 96.8%, which is actually as effective as the birth control pill and more effective than any other drug or device on the market. A system is used equally for couples of normal fertility to achieve pregnancy, and this slide shows us that in the study of couples, 76% of them achieved pregnancy in the very first cycle, 90% in the third, and 98% by the 6th cycle. These are very high numbers, and that's why when I have a client who has used a day of fertility, I expect them to be pregnant, because Bodies work very efficiently when they're working. Out of the data that was produced by thousands of women charting the Creighton model, we were able to come up with a new women's health science called naprotechnology. This is truly revolutionary and really finally gives us real help for reproductive abnormalities like infertility, frequent miscarriage, preterm labor, endometriosis, PMS, ovarian cysts, and really so many other things. This is so exciting because for so many of these things, the modern mainstream answer was the birth control pill. And so we really have an effective alternative for this stuff now. It is my goal to teach women and couples to appreciate and embrace their fertility as a whole, that it might no longer be treated as a problem in the struggle to avoid pregnancy, but something to work with and participate in, to be an active participant in monitoring and maintaining one's own gynecologic health. So if anyone is interested in learning the Creighton model, the first step is to attend an intro session, and you would contact me to do that. Some of the other notes here, I'm always at a loss, or not at a loss, but it's a struggle to help people who have a financial need. This is my job, and I try to do as much pro bono as I can, but again, it's putting bread on the table. So anytime anyone is interested in giving toward couples who are struggling with paying to learn the Creighton model, I do gladly accept that help. Also, anyone who is interested in being a practitioner of the Creighton model, I am overwhelmed with work. There's so many people wanting to learn, and I just can't take care of all of them. I am the only practitioner at this time taking clients in San Diego, so we really, really need more people. Lastly, a few book suggestions. This is a great reading if you'd just like to read more about theology of the body, or those different spice areas to connect, or just natural family planning. These are 3 great resources. And if you're not seeing the slide, this is Christopher West, really anything by Christopher West, Theology of the Body for Beginners, also the book Good News About Sex and Marriage. Then by Gary Chapman, a book called The 5 Love Languages, fantastic in working to connect and communicate with your spouse. Lastly, it's a fantastic book by Simcha Fisher called The Sinner's Guide to Natural Family Planning. She has a very humorous, straightforward style of writing that is, and it's a very quick read. If you have any further questions or want to talk to me about NFP in general or would like to attend an intro session, please don't hesitate to contact me. My email address is Anna, A-N-N-A, at fertilitycaresd.com. It's Anna at fertilitycaresd.com. God bless you. Thank you.